Hey, this is Dayspring with Power of X-Men.
This is Sailor Tortilla.
This is Miracle from Magical Melody.
This is Brooke with the Sailor Moon Fan Network, and you're tuned into Double Moonlight Justice
With Z and Grayson.
Here on Moonlight Justice, we adhere to the power of three. The power of... I knew it was going to happen. It happens every time. I'm going to flub the line somewhere.
And that's okay.
Oh, God. Okay, I'm going to try it again.
You're good.
Moonlight, justice.
Hey, Sailor Guardians, you are tuned into Double Moonlight Justice. Moonlight Justice is a fan podcast dedicated to the hit manga anime franchise Sailor Moon. I'm your host, Grayson.
And I am your host, Z.
On Moonlight Justice, we adhere to the power of three. The power of three are principles we abide by as your Sailor hosts. 1. Practice controversy with civility. We will respectfully discuss our thoughts and opinions without a feeling of judgment. 2. Things can always be discussed constructively and positively. 3. We will not engage in racism, xenophobia, phobias, or triggers. However, these topics might be addressed in correlation with some of our discussions, and we will be sure to provide a warning beforehand. So, a little housekeeping. We want to apologize for the delay and the unfortunate deletion of our last episode from July. We had my childhood best friend Brent join us on the podcast to talk about growing up with Sailor Moon. Luckily, Brent has agreed to join us again, so we'll talk about it all over again.
Excellent.
So with all that said, we'll get started. So this past August, all international Sailor Guardians were finally treated to the release of Sailor Moon Cosmos in English, Chinese, and Spanish dubs.
Woo. Oh
my gosh. So Sailor Moon Cosmos debuted in Japan theaters in June 2023 and was released physically, exclusively in Japan in December of 2023. International Sailor Guardians had to wait over a year before seeing the final movie of the Sailor Moon revival stream on Netflix. Today, Z and I are going to give our thoughts on Sailor Moon Cosmos and answer questions and comments submitted by our audience. Before we jump into our review, Z, it feels like it's been such a long time since we last recorded, but it's only been a few months.
Shoot, it feels like an eternity. Like a whole eternity.
Right. So in true Moonlight Justice fashion, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty okay. Can't complain. Sun shining. How about you?
It's been a difficult past few months for me. I experienced a loss. My favorite aunt passed away in August.
Sorry.
So it's been, grief is a weird journey. So this is the first time it's really like hit close to home.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a lot of like navigating, dealing with the ups and downs, just making, just kind of like taking it as it comes, dealing with the feelings as they arise and stuff like that. So it's been an adjustment, but for the most part, I've been okay.
That's good.
And what have you been up to lately?
Well, I have primarily been working on my Evangeline Fox dress. She is getting close to done. I'm getting there, slowly but surely. And I actually also started an internship here recently. I won't go into too many I won't go into too many details for like personal sake. But it's an unpaid internship, and I'm happy that I'll be getting some graphic design experience in. And I really do like the organization that I'm working with. So I'm really excited about that. That's been like a big stride for me lately.
Oh, that's amazing.
Thank
I can't wait to
you.
hear more about this.
Yeah. That's been like the biggest thing. So this week has been like reading a lot of stuff and getting acquainted with things and meeting with people. So I'm
Okay.
hoping that it'll be good stuff. Good
Right.
stuff. Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so what have I been up to?
Yes. What have you been up to, G?
So I just started an Instagram account for the Magical Melody Symphony because I am the de facto fan club president for Magical Melody.
Yay! And we love that.
Yeah. So the fan club is live on Instagram. Magical Melody Symphony is the tag for the Instagram. So I'll be posting edits on there. Hopefully we'll get some fan art from the Discord on to the fan club. The goal is it's a road to 10,000 followers.
Okay.
So many people don't know that Magical Melody is not a monetized creation online. Melody does it from her own blood, sweat, and tears and money. And you know, Bryce is definitely a big proponent in helping fund Magical Melody, and so we get all see all the cool costumes and the production and stuff like that. So the road to 10,000 is a way for us to create a subscription model for Magical Melody Symphony, and all the proceeds that come from subscriptions will go to funding the Magical Melody production. So all that money goes to Miracle and Bryce to help continue the creation of Magical Melody. We also have some goodies in the works for fan club members. So definitely just getting started and getting the followers, stuff like that. So it's been really fun doing that. Speaking of Magical Melody, I got to meet Miracle and Bryce back in September.
And that's so cool.
It was Miracle asked me, well, she asked me, she's like, so what's it like meeting both of us? I was like, it's a dream come true.
I can imagine.
Oh my gosh. So I do live in Las Vegas, and Miracle and Bryce came in Las Vegas for a wedding, and they wanted to see me. And so I went to go meet them downtown. And Z, you can't imagine, like I parked my car and I'm walking to the restaurant where I'm supposed to be meeting them at. And I'm like, what are they going to be wearing? What are they going to look like? Like, I'm so used to seeing them on screen. It's going to be so weird seeing them in person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying everything not to cry because it was so amazing. Because when I walked up the sidewalk, here comes Miracle, all dressed in pink, the heart glasses, her hat, and I didn't know she was bringing Bryce with her. Mm-hmm. So when she said we, I was like, who is we? Is it going to be Brittany? Oh my gosh, I'm going to see Brittany too. And it was Bryce. I was like, oh my gosh, that makes it that much better. So it was really cool meeting them. We talked about Magical Melody, and I got some goodies from them. I got like this cool like Sailor Moon clear file and some Magical Melody stickers, and I signed Magical Melody photo cards.
What?
And it was so funny because she told me, she's like, oh, I have some gifts for you. I was going to mail them to you, but since I'll be in Las Vegas, I'll give them to you. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so when she gave it to me, I was really excited to get it. But I told her, I was like, I'm so happy you gave this to me. I said, I really hope you were bringing me a cadenza colorator.
I'm screeching.
And she was like, I wouldn't even know how to pack that.
You try.
So it was cool. We hung out in downtown Las Vegas for a few hours and shopped at the thrift stores and stuff like that. It was really cool. We walked and we talked, and I showed her my Magical Melody master doc, which I'm working on for the Magical Melody wiki page. So she was like, oh my gosh, can you link this? Can you like give me this? Because I'm really inspired. She's been really busy this past summer with like work and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So she was like, I can't wait to get home. And I'm really inspired because I want to do more Magical Melody stuff. And I was like, I'm so excited. And walking back to their hotel, it was a great time. And I'm in my car and I'm driving home, and I'm like, you didn't take a picture with them. No one's going to believe that this actually happened because you didn't take a picture.
I believe. I can feel it in my heart. It resonates in my heart that y'all met.
Yeah, so it was really cool. It was great. It was definitely great for the heart. Um, we also talked about Lost Soldier, my Sailor Moon fanfic. So that had been on pause. That had been on pause since my aunt passed. I just wasn't really feeling the creative energy, and I kind of like wanted to be organic. I don't want to force it, but I'm going to start back writing. I'm working on Act 4, and the so Act 4 and the other acts will be inspired by prompts from Usamama Week, which was from late September to August 3rd, which is Mamoru's birthday. Z, thank you so much for being my editor-in-chief.
You are so welcome. I'm more than happy.
Oh, you guys have no idea. Like, Z has helped me capture and maintain like the Sailor Moon essence. So it's like so it's like for me, it's like Z's like, I'm not good at editing. I don't know what you want me to do. And I'm like, I just want to make sure it feels right. And she's like, oh, it feels great. It's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, what like 100%.
Right,
100%,
it feels great.
It feels.
And she's giving me some like great tips, like when it comes to the dialogue and stuff like that, like how to write it and make sure that it flows right. So I definitely appreciate that. She's like, I'm not 100% sure, but maybe you should work on the dialogue. And it has helped a lot.
I'm glad. I'm
Yes,
really happy that my
so-
suggestions have been helping.
Yes, because I was like literally just writing it all out. And Z's like, maybe you should break up the dialogue. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's right. This looks so much better. And then so Act 3, which is so ironic because Act 3 is a funeral chapter.
Right.
And so it happened, like I finished that chapter right before like the passing of my aunt. So it was very cathartic in a sense, but it was just like so weird that happened to be the last chapter that I wrote about. And it was very endearing. It was very emotional chapter to write. And I had never really experienced a funeral in that capacity before. So it was really weird to write about. So it was like, I guess it was like the universe kind of like preparing me for the eventuality of what happened. I also want to thank my dear friend, mi corazón, Olga.
Yay!
She's a dear friend of mine. I've known her for over 10 years, and she speaks Spanish. And so I asked her to read the chapter as well to make sure the Spanish in that chapter was correct. So for those who have not read Lost Soldier, the Sailor Mars character is Spanish. She is from Spain. Her and her family are from Spain. Her father is a Spanish ambassador that lives in Paris, right? So in the chapter, there's a lot of Spanish spoken throughout the entire chapter. And as great as Google Translate is, I don't rely on that translator alone. So I asked Olga to read the chapter, and she loved it. She was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've never read anything like this before. And she said, I only have one comment. You need to change the way they're saying this in Spanish. And I said, why? She said, because that is more for romantic people than it is for family. And she's like, it just sounds weird. Like, I know, she's like, I know what you mean. She's like, but I don't think other people will understand like what that means. So out of all the Spanish that was in that entire chapter, that was the only thing she corrected. So it was really cool. So yeah, that's all my updates. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into our review of Sailor Moon Cosmos. It's kind of like loosely structured. I figured we would kind of like just bring up some talking points and like fill it in. So Z, without diving into details just yet, when did you watch Sailor Moon Cosmos?
Okay, so I actually got to watch it early January because there were people that had bought like the Japanese release and they ripped it. And there were some people that were kind enough to provide some fan subs. So that's how I initially watched it.
Okay.
So I watched it in Japanese. Then I watched it again when it officially released here internationally. Both times I cried. I was a horrible crybaby the first time I watched it. It rang true the second time.
Okay. And so you kind of answered my next question. So you watch. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's fine.
Okay.
It flows perfectly.
Excellent.
So you watched the Japanese version
hmm
and you watched the English version.
I
Right?
did. I watched
Okay.
it English the second time.
Okay. So based on your watches, out of 10, what would you rate the movie
Ooh. So like individually or as a whole?
as a whole?
Okay. As a whole, I would give the movie a good 8.5 out of 10.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. And what were your general feels after watching the movie the first time?
This felt like a conclusive ending. I felt like when it came to the initial Crystal being faithful to the manga adaptation, this movie felt the strongest. The colors are pretty.
Yes.
This is very this is very emotional. I'm like going back to when I first initially watched it. The colors are beautiful. The voice acting is great. This feels like an end. As much as I don't want it to be an end, this feels
Right.
like an end and something that was taken with much care. Like it felt like a lot of care was put into this movie from the
Right.
beginning to the end.
Yes. Okay. So I watched Sailor Moon Cosmos in December of 2023.
Yes.
I was one of the individuals that purchased the Japanese Blu-ray.
hmm
So I watched it. So that was kind of like my Christmas present to myself. So I watched it around Christmas time. I've only watched the Japanese version. I literally scanned through some of the English. So this morning. So I watched
Okay.
I watched the Iron Mouse scene.
Okay.
Just to see like how they transform, how they attack.
Mhm.
I watched the aluminum siren scene,
Mhm.
and then I watched the like Usagi wondering like who Chibi really was. Like, oh, and
Gotcha.
the reason why I watched, like, I looked out for like some of those casual scenes because I wanted to see if they did like they did in Eternal
Mhm.
and said Chan and Kun, and they did.
Yeah.
So how would I rate this movie? I'm
How
probably
would you rate it?
going to be in the same vein as you, Z, because I was expecting you to give it a 9. I also would give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Mhm.
What were my general feels after watching? Very emotional.
Yeah.
It felt like the end. Like it. Like I definitely echo the same sentiments. It felt like a definitive conclusion of the Sailor Moon revival as a whole. Like,
Yes.
so I think that's what made it also very emotional too. Like, this could be the last time we hear Kotono Mitsubishi voice Sailor Moon. You know, and for it being for the most part a faithful adaptation of the Sailor Moon manga, you know, it's a story that was never animated, so it was really interesting to see some of those manga moments make it onto the screen and to feel the finality of it all. It was definitely like, what now?
Mhm.
So with all that being said,
Yes.
what did you? So I've heard you mention some things like you like the colors, stuff like that. What
Yes.
else did you like about the movie?
What else did I like about this movie? I would say the pacing was really good in the second part, and I also really love the voice acting. Definitely for both parts, but I really like the Japanese voice acting. Everything it really just kind of added some heat to the severity of the situation, I guess, for lack of a better phrase.
Right.
And I also really liked the animation, and we'll probably dive into this a little bit more, but I also loved a lot of the homages that they did within the movie. Like, kind of going back into the idea of a lot of care and a lot of thought was put into these movies.
Okay. So,
What about
you know, we talked. So for me, what I like about it, so I definitely liked the animation. It definitely gave me, and I think most 90s fans will agree, it definitely gave like that 90s feel. The colors, some of the character design and animation definitely felt like it was designed like from the 90s. Definitely some of the fan service, like the openings, the Moonlight Densetsu and the Sailor Star song, and the inspirations from the previous 90s series was very prominent throughout Sailor Moon Cosmos. The pacing was good, but I was expecting the pacing to be just similar to Eternal. It was going to be very fast paced for a 2-part movie. So the voice acting was great. Definitely loved the Japanese version. So I think that's
kind of like the gist.
Yeah, that's the gist. Is like I like the animation, I like the colors, I like the voice acting. The pacing was really good. The emotional depth was there. Like it didn't feel like it was forced in the Japanese version, in my opinion. It was really cool to see some of those moments come to life, like Sailor Kakyu. Seeing like Chibi Chibi transform for like the first time, the Sailor Quartet in action.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so it's like really cool to see those moments. Seeing the rest of the Sailor anime mates, like Sailor Metal Headed Papillon, Sailor Phi and Kai, and seeing like Chaos.
Yes.
Like, like it was really cool to see all of that. And seeing all of the Senshi be evil was really cool.
That was such a good scene. Like,
yes.
Finally.
Yes. So we talked about what we liked about the movie. And the one thing I don't want us to do is kind of like get into that negative like headspace of what we didn't like and what we hated. I think that tends to run rampant online. So rather than talk about what we didn't like, I would like us to talk about what we think could have been done differently and what could have been changed to make the movie that much better. So, did you want to go first, or did you want me to go first?
I can go first. I only got two little points, and I think the second one is something that we both discussed a little bit. The first one that I think could have totally made both of these movies Gucci was an earlier international release date.
Yes.
But also, I would say just some more music. I feel like just thinking of the previous movie soundtracks and Sailor Moon soundtracks, like talking about the character albums, the OSTs, this movie it felt like it was lacking that personally. Like they have maybe 1, 2, 3 songs, I think.
So Moonlight Densetsu, the Sailor Star song, and Suki no Hana, Moonflower. Yes, I agree. It was great to see Moonlight Densetsu. I like that the movies had openings.
Yes.
Kind of wish Eternal had that too.
Yes.
I wish they would have brought back Momoko.
That would have been cool. Like, start with an type thing.
For real, like it would have been nice to have them come on. As much as I like Suki no Hana, it wasn't featured prominently enough for it to be memorable, in my opinion. Like I felt like the song was going to be featured in the movie more, kind of like how was it Moon Color Channel?
Yeah,
was featured in and was part of the musical motif for Eternal. So I feel like musically Eternal was stronger than Cosmos because it had a theme song motif in addition to the original pieces that went along with the movie. So yes, I would definitely change that about like the movies kind of like making the music a little bit more prominent. I do love the Sailor, like the vocalizations in the Inner Senshi's transformation, the Sailor Guardians theme, and Sailor Moon's transformation theme. What else would I change? I would I would have liked to have, like, if I was going to change anything, I would give all of the Senshi their own individual transformations.
Oh, yes.
So Mercury,
yes.
Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Saturn deserve the transformation, I believe. I probably would have made, like, because we talked about the homages and the fan service. I really feel like the Starlights could have benefited from using the footage from their second transformations from the 90s series. I would have liked to see the Sailor Quartet transform for the first time. That was a great opportunity for them to, as proper Senshi, along with Chibi Moon, who got a great transformation herself. I think it would have been cool for her to transform with her team.
It would have been great.
I think it would have been cool to see the Sailor Anima mates transform.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it would have been
different.
cool. Yeah, it would have been cool to see that. I definitely, I would have liked to have seen Sailor Pluto get her own attack that wasn't evil.
Yeah.
But it was, and I think that's the only thing. It's like, it wasn't necessarily like something I disliked. I just felt like, it could have been more. Sailor Moon got like 3 transformation scenes. So,
yeah.
Like you could have kept her at one and gave that time to other people. But, it wasn't anything like it did not diminish the quality of the movie for me. Like, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this makes it a 2 out of 10. Like, no.
Yeah.
Definitely didn't feel that way at all. Like, the movie was solid. I just felt like there was some opportunities that could have like enhanced the movie experience. Yeah. You know how many edits I could have done if I got individual transformations?
Oh, that would have been so cool. so many edits.
So, we talked about the animation. What specifically about the animation did you like?
Oh my goodness, what did I like specifically? I would say the latter half, when she's in Galaxia's lair. It's like a scene where I think it's after Cosmos gets revealed, but all of the dark essentially becomes light. I like a lot of the colorful scenes. I know that's so generic. I know it's so generic and big, but like anything that had a pop of color, I think really caught my eye. Especially the attacks in particular, like Sailor Moon's attacks, Starlight Honeymoon Therapy Kiss.
Yes,
I remember screaming that a lot when I watched it the first time. Just seeing a lot of the visuals, like something that wasn't necessary, or something that initially was on manga pages, and seeing how they interpret that in this particular medium. So I would say the attack sequences specifically, and then on top of that, them being like a soft homage to how they did it in the 90s anime. That's Kiss on top of that.
Right. Yes, it was really cool. Because even like before I got my hands on the movie, I bought like the visual guide. I'm like going through all the pages, and I'm like taking note. I'm like, they didn't show this in the book. Does that mean it's not in the movie? And it wasn't. Because it was just based on some of the previews and some of the visual cue, the key visuals in the visual guide. I was like, we never saw like the Senshi pose individually, so I was like, they keep showing like their speech intro, and so I was like, okay, something's missing here. I was like, they're showing like parts of their transformations, but not the ending sequence, and I was like, they're doing a group transformation. Oh, they're like, okay, so it wasn't individuals. Like, it was really cool seeing like the tile floor from Sailor Moon's speech and her moon crystal power moon from the 90s in the background.
Yep.
The lace doilies, seeing like Starlight Honeymoon Therapy Kiss and Silver Moon Crystal Power Therapy Kiss in sequence with the 90s versions of it, but also it was really cool seeing Space Turbulence and Submarine Veil on Tide. Like, that was really cool to see. I really wish we could have gotten some transformations from them. Some really strong moments, like when Pluto faced Galaxia It was just the animation. She was like animated beautifully. Kind of like circling back to what I would change as well. I would have changed the sound design.
Oh.
So, so there's specific scenes that stand out to me, and I think just from me editing. So, a lot of people don't know that, like when I edit, I'm literally editing from silence, so from the ground up. So I'm literally just taking footage, editing the footage the way I want to, adding the music and adding the sound effects afterwards. So I hear a lot of the '90s sound effects, so I kind of like I can identify them easily.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So in Cosmos, they use a lot of the '90s sound design, but not in the way that you would think that they would use the '90s sound designs.
Okay.
So if you listen to some of the scenes, like if you, so when the Sailor Starlights transform,
Yep.
you hear a spinning sound. That is from Rainbow Moon Heartache.
I love how meticulous that is, that you can detect. Like, I love that.
So in the scene when Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are teleporting to their castles, they mixed up the sounds.
Oh.
So when Neptune's going to her planet, you hear Pluto's ending, like you hear Pluto's signature motif sound at the end of her transformation on her. You hear Uranus on Pluto, and you hear Neptune on Uranus. So yeah, it's just like some of the interesting sound effects. So it's like a lot of the sound effects used in Sailor Moon Eternal Transformation is from the Moon Crisis '90s transformation.
Okay.
So it's just, and so it's like, it's not like, again, it does not diminish anything for me. But it's like when Sailor's, like for example, like when Sailor Star Healer uses Sensitive Inferno, it's using the Dead Scream sound design.
Now I gotta rewatch Cosmos with this extra insight and just be like, she was right.
So it's really cool seeing like again, it does not diminish the film for me in any way. It does not like it does not take down points for me. It's just like just something interesting because it's very, very niche. You have to be like really like meticulously involved in Sailor Moon to be able to notice something like that. And I think the only reason I'm paying attention is because I deal with sound effects a lot when it comes to some of my edits.
Gotcha.
So we talked about the music, and I think that that's also kind of like goes into like the overall sound design as well, where it's like some of the musical motifs could have been stronger. And seeing as like a lot of these moments were like final shining moments for like, you know, the Inner Senshi and stuff like that would have been a great opportunity for them to kind of like shine in their own light before, you know, they face off in their battles against Anima Maid, you know?
Yeah.
Were there any other notes in regards to music that you wanted to add?
Akiko Kasaka. I wish she wrote another song. Because I forgot about the Happy Marriage song.
Oh, that's right. So you're right. There was 4 songs. You did mention 4 songs.
Yeah. It's like, I feel like I'm forgetting 1 or 2. And I know the Starlights have their song.
Oh, that's right. So that's like 5, 6 songs.
Yeah, but that's still so limited, I'd say, compared to like the other like previous seasons.
I'm so glad you brought that up, though.
I got
because
you.
as much as I love the homage to Shooting Star from the '90s, I preferred the original version. I'm not saying I didn't like the new version, but I preferred the original. It just had like this like R&B-ish type jazzy feel to it. It was very ballad. It wasn't much of a pop song. So I guess it's like the variations. I don't know if that's like my nostalgia bias coming into play. So I want to be very mindful. Like the song was I loved when Seiya sung the song solo
See,
to
I
Usagi.
did
That
too.
was beautiful.
I love that so much, and genuinely, I don't know if they did this on purpose, but it gave me the moment within Le Moment Finale and say it
Yes,
is
yes, yes.
the Wandering Stars. Like,
Yes.
yes, Hoshino, Hoshino, yes, please.
I was like, I love Lamua Finale so much. I was really hoping they would do Wandering Stars
Same.
because I think Wandering Stars is what was used in the manga.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, that would
so
be cool.
yeah, so I was like, I really thought Wandering Stars was going to be like the same song.
I think I would actually tried harder.
And my thing is like so for those that aren't aware, there is an original Sailor Starlight's a 3-light song called Starline
Mhm.
that was released, and it did not show up in the movie at all. And it's a good song.
Yeah, it's good.
It was really good. Like, I was like, okay, if they use that in the movie, like, I could have been okay with that.
I would have rocked with that pretty well.
Right.
Pretty good.
Like, it was a really great song. It you know, I'm glad they released it, but I wish they would have made it like part of the movie, you know.
Yeah, like integrated it somehow.
So I think that that's kind of the thing too, where it's like musically, it does not diminish the movie whatsoever. Just some missed opportunities and some like a little change here, a little change there would have made the movie that much better. You know,
Yeah.
like it's still a strong movie. It would have been stronger if there was like some additional changes, but nothing like too drastic.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So with all that being said, we have Sailor Moon Cosmos has signaled the end of the Sailor Moon Crystal revival. So Z,
Yes.
from 1 to 5, with 1 being the best liked and
Oh, no.
5 being the least liked, rank the Crystal Revival series. So we have the Dark Kingdom arc, Black Moon, Infinity, Eternal, and Cosmos.
Oh goodness. Oh goodness. I didn't write what seasons were which. I just wrote season whatever. Okay.
Okay.
So one is Cosmos. I love
Okay.
Cosmos. Like I mentioned, good inclusive ending, like that. 2 for me would be Eternal.
Okay.
3 would be the Dark Kingdom arc.
Okay.
4 would be Infinity,
Okay.
and then 5 would be the Black Moon in season 2.
Okay.
I love them all equally, but if I had,
If I had
to
to
rank,
choose, right?
yeah, if I had to rank, that's how I'd go.
Right. Okay. So for me, it's kind of the same. So Cosmos 1, Eternal 2, 3 is Infinity,
Okay.
which I think is very interesting because it's like we put our favorite arcs right after. the
Right.
movie. 4 was Black Moon and 5 was Dark Kingdom.
Interesting.
I like them all equally. And honestly, I feel like Dark Kingdom and Black Moon could switch places.
Okay.
Because we're talking about difference in animation quality. I feel like Dark Kingdom kind of like was like the pilot testing phase of Sailor Moon Crystal. So there was a lot of like ups and downs in animation. There's nothing wrong with the voice acting. The voice acting was on par, but I think just like trying to meet with the demand of, you know, streaming deadline and streaming like was it every week on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was kind of like, you know, was determining the animation quality and some of the criticism that was coming from online. Kind of like, you know, was giving the Dark Kingdom and Black Moon arcs their swimming legs or whatever.
Yeah.
Infinity was a change in direction,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also something that people were worried about with the initial revival of Sailor Moon Crystal, was that it was going to be basically a precure version of Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
So while season 3, which is like my favorite arc, got different animation, a lot of people were concerned that it was very precure
Yeah.
Sailor Moon.
Mhm.
And then, you know, taking the feedback from those seasons, we got Eternal and Cosmos, which kind of like realigned itself with the 90s version of Sailor Moon that everyone loved, and animation quality increased, production values increased, but there are also movies.
Yeah.
So we talked about the voice acting a little bit in regards to Sailor Moon Cosmos.
Mhm.
And but I wanted to touch on it a little bit more. You said that you like the Japanese voice acting. I've only watched the Japanese version in its entirety, so I can't really speak on the English version too much. But as you know, in terms of voice acting, like, what did you think?
And this is about the English version, correct?
Yes,
Or just-
well, both
Okay.
versions. So.
So I feel like if I'm talking about them both, I think a statement I can say is the Japanese sub felt more raw at times with
Gotcha.
its emotions.
Yes.
Like thinking of some scenes, especially like some Usagi scenes in particular, it felt like the emotion wasn't giving 100% at times with the English dub. Like there's really, really good moments in the English dub, but I felt like there was more rawness in the emotion when it comes to Japanese sub. Like they're both really good, but I felt like Japanese tugged on my heart just a little bit more, just to like the anguish of the screams and just kind of hearing Usagi's disdain, the senshi, like oh my goodness, yeah. I think that's a statement that would ring through. Just a little more emotion, and it felt more raw,
Yeah, I think the Japanese is stronger in that sense because I mean we're talking about Kotono Mitsuishi, was there for 200 episodes of this drama.
Like she's seen it all,
right? And then comes back for 3 seasons and 2 movies again. I think it was like the culmination of all those feelings over the years. So I think it's like easy to recall like how you felt in Sailor Stars, and then here you are again in Sailor Moon Cosmos, dealing with that same emotion. And I think that kind of like attests to how important familiarity and continuity is when it comes to our fandom. And I think that producers and executives that are cognizant that this is near and dear to someone's heart, and making sure that you are maintaining that quality throughout any iteration of it speaks volumes. Just like, for example, like Johnny Young Bosch, who played Trigun again in the Trigun Stampede series. Like, people are excited. People get excited for that again because it's like, oh my gosh, Johnny Young Bosch was Trigun in the original '90s series, and he's coming back for Stampede. It's like my childhood all over again. Like it means a lot to people when you bring back original voices and talent that brought it to life in the first place. So I think that the Toei was very cognizant of bringing back at least Kotono Mitsuishi because they're like, she is the voice of Sailor Moon. Who knows how it would have been received if it was someone else that voiced Sailor Moon.
There's a universe somewhere where that happened. But like,
right.
can't help but wonder like that would change a lot of stuff, I feel.
Right. I feel like it would. And and it's like, and I think X-Men 97 is also kind of like a testament to how much people resonate with. It's not just seeing your favorite characters on screen, it's hearing and feeling their voices again. So it's like seeing most of the cast be brought back in some capacity, either in their original role or as a new role. People are still excited to see and hear their characters the way people like when Allison Seeley Smith spoke again as Storm in episode 1 of X-Men 97, I was like, oh my god!
Like it just adds to that emotional factor.
Oh my god! It was so emotional.
Yeah.
It was so emotional. Like it just made me very like just very teary-eyed because I was like, oh my gosh. And I was talking to Paul about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, and so like we had been talking about Cosmos and stuff like that. And I was like, Paul, like, can you believe that, here we are, in our late 30s, experiencing not one, but two revivals of two of our favorite series, Sailor Moon and X-Men. Like, that is unheard of. Like, in our lifetime, we have seen the revival of two of our favorite shows, and we're getting to experience with old fans and new fans. Like, it's a great experience. I think that's the most thing that I could take away from the Crystal Revival, is that it's an experience that we all get to share and experience, because we didn't really get to share that in the 90s on this scale.
Yep.
So I did mention that I watched some of the scenes in English.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, you did.
So like, I watched it to kind of like see like how the transformation, the text went, and I did watch it to see like how they were speaking casually, and much like Eternal, they're using the honorifics that come from Japan, so Chan and Kun and Sama. And while I appreciate the intention to be as faithful as possible to the original adaptation, I feel like it was unnecessary.
Oh.
And I'll say what I said on the Eternal Mooncast podcast when we were talking about Nihilania.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with localization.
Yeah.
Bad localization is wrong.
I remember that.
And I think that that's the thing. Like, nobody was complaining that Sailor Moon's name was Serena. Nobody was complaining that, Mamoru's name was Darien. Like, no one was complaining. Like, at the time, like, no one was complaining about the English version in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think what people were having issue with was the fact is that the writing and the editing was not on par with the storytelling that was taking place in the original version of Japan. So that's why a lot of people will say, like, we love the deep cast, we love the Cloverway cast, not because the writing and the editing was great, but the voice acting, the emoting, and the characterization was good. Now, don't get me wrong, Cloverway has pushed some weird dialogue, like saying "What's up, dog?" and stuff like that, and I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
don't do that, don't do that, don't try to be hip.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's kind of, and we talked about that in the Eternal Mooncast too, where it's like, there's nothing wrong with the Viz cast. I think that because they are trying to be as faithful to the original Japanese script, the emoting is being lost in translation.
Yes.
So I think that that's kind of like, what I have to say about like the English, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't watch the Eternal movie in its entirety either, because it's like, they said Chan, like, it doesn't really, I guess for me it's like, for us fans, like us fans that have watched the series and know what they mean, have no issue with it. But as new fans are coming in, they're like, why are they saying that at the end? Like, it doesn't make, it's like, it's just off-putting. Like, it's not bad, it's not good, it's just off-putting, right?
Yes.
Any other comments, Z?
No, I actually don't have any.
Okay.
I don't think I do.
Right. So I think that overall, like, we love Sailor Moon Cosmos. We're sad to see the Crystal Revival end.
So dang sad. Oh,
it's been an emotional journey. Like, we are definitely feeling the finality and the conclusion of a series, just like we did when the original Sailor Moon series ended, when PGSM ended.
Yeah.
And it's like we're waiting for season 2, and it's like, you get a special act.
And
That's it.
that's it.
So I think that's like also kind of what we're also feeling as well. The culmination, like, dang, we saw Sailor Stars and we saw PGSM end, and now we're seeing Sailor Moon Crystal end, and it's like, what do we do now?
Literally, like where do we go from here?
Right. So with all that said, we're going to go ahead and jump into some anonymous questions and comments that we got online. So when Z and I decided to record this episode, we thought it'd be a good idea to put out a link for fans to submit their questions about Sailor Moon Cosmos, Sailor Moon in general, and their comments about the movie, so we could discuss them on the podcast. So we got a handful of questions, and we're going to go through those right now.
Okay.
So the first question is, do you think there should be a continuation to the story with Chibiusa as the new Sailor Moon while trying to juggle being a princess and a high school girl?
Ooh.
What do you think, Z?
Oh goodness. There's a part of me that wants to say yes because more Sailor Moon story, but I'm gonna say a quiet no.
Okay. I too will say a quiet no.
Okay. Like I think that would be really cool, like in concept, but it just makes you wonder how would they bring that to life, what the animation would be like what tone would they set with this? Because there would be preconceived notions going into this, like, this is Chibiusa, this is a whole new story. Would you show her parents, or would this be specifically focused on her? So like, how would that story unfold? That's my question.
I agree. So yeah, I definitely say quiet no. I don't want to see a rehash of the Usagi story told from a Chibiusa lens. I think that's kind of redundant. If I was going to do a continuation, I would do it from... Oh gosh, this is really hard, because for me it's like I guess for me it's like I would not want to see a continuation at the end of the Sailor Moon manga. Like, I don't want to see what happens after Cosmos or / Stars, right?
Yes.
Because after that, it's supposed to be a peaceful era.
Yeah, it's supposed to be all peace and calm.
Right. So for me, it's like if I wanted to see a Chibiusa story, I would want to see like after so I'm thinking in the lines of Crystal. So after she becomes a Sailor Senshi at the end of the Black Moon arc, I think it would have been really cool to see her. Well, now that I think the answer's still no, because that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. Like, for me, it'd be one thing if they ended it in such a way where Chibiusa awakened as a Sailor Senshi and she went back to the future to fight the Black Moon arc. But the way that arc ended with Sailor Moon and Sailor Chibi Moon defeating the Death Phantom, it kind of like eliminates the need for that type of story.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why Chibiusa stayed in the past, because it is a peaceful era in Crystal Tokyo. There's no real conflict for her to properly train as a Sailor Senshi, which is why she was sent back to the past in the first place. And when she's sent back, and Neo Queen's Ready sends her back to the past again to go help Sailor Moon fight in the present day crisis, because their future is not their future is being affected, but there's not an enemy to face in order to fix that. So no, what I would like to see is a Sailor Cosmos continuation of what happened in that gap between Crystal Tokyo and that far distant future that led to the final battle between Cosmos and Chaos.
That would be cool.
So I think that would be interesting to see how Sailor Chaos came about, what Sailor Cosmos' origins are like, what other Sailor Senshi were around at that time. I think that would have been a great continuation, Another question that we got was, do you think we'll get another revival?
Ooh.
So I'm going to speak first.
You speak.
I'm going to take a note from Z's book and say, I'm gonna say a quiet no on this one too.
It's just quiet no's all around. Because I also was gonna say quiet no. As much as my heart hopes, I feel like if there was one to occur, it'd be way into the future. Like I'm thinking 20, 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
At minimum.
And at minimum. And it's like, and I guess it depends. I mean, Sailor Moon has maintained its popularity over the past 30 years. I would like to think that it would continue for another 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that we'll be back here again for the 50th, 60th anniversary saying, well, it's time for another Sailor Moon. But I don't think at any time soon we'll see another Sailor Moon revival. I think that if history is repeating itself, we'll see another Sailor Moon live action.
Yeah, I feel like it would
In the
happen in
interim?
a different medium.
Yes,
We're
definitely going to get more musicals for sure, and I think that's
Please.
kind of like where we're entering into the next phase of Sailor Moon, where more musicals are coming out. You know, probably like Shining Moon Tokyo and all that. Like those shows will be prominent throughout Japan, but I don't think we'll see another series for a while. Just based on the response from Crystal in the movies alone, I don't know if there's enough demand to justify spending the money on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, quiet no for now. Like we're always hoping. We always want to see something Sailor Moon. My hope is that Nogi Miyu will turn into its own series.
Lord, please. Especially with the team that they've got going on right now and just how up, for lack of a better word, this last or past production has been. It would be so cool if they actually continued and did the other stories, especially for that particular storytelling format.
Yes.
Imagine the Fukus. Like
I was really thinking that too. Like I want to see the Fukus. Like I love the Nogi Miyu costumes from the recent musical, and I would like to see how they translate all the other costumes. And I would love to see an Eternal version for the Inner and Outer Senshi on stage for once.
Please. That would be please and thank you.
So that ties into our next question. It's what are we looking forward to in the future for the fandom?
Oh, definitely more musicals. Like I really hope that the 5th Gen Nogi Miyu is a step in some good foundations for more musicals.
Yes.
I hope.
Yes.
Please.
So definitely more musicals. I'm also looking. So I think the one thing that we have the luxury of looking forward to is fan work.
Yes.
So people are like asking, do you want to see a continuation of the Chibiusa story with Sailor Quartet and Helios? There's already a manga about that.
Right, there is.
Yeah, there's a fan manga that touches on the future with that. It's focused on Chibiusa, Helios, and Sailor Quartet. So I think that's where the quiet no comes in, because it's like quiet no because we're not going to see it. Like I don't think it's going to be something that we're going to see officially. Unofficially, yes. So we're seeing that there's already a manga about Chibiusa, Princess Small Serenity stepping into the role as queen with Helios as her king and Sailor Quartet and all that. There's another creator, and I'll probably include those tags in the description of the podcast. There is another artist that is working on a Sailor Moon series based on Chibiusa. So Chibiusa's grown; she's the Sailor Moon of the future, and he's going to talk about that. I'm working on Lost Soldier, which is a retelling of the entire series. One of my favorite artists, their name is Stella Luna. They are working on their own animated retelling of Sailor Moon, in movie format. So Sailor Moon Prism is the first movie, and it basically touches on the events in the Dark Kingdom arc. And basically each movie is based on that. So Sailor Moon Prism is first, Sailor Moon Crystal is second, Sailor Moon Cosmic, blah blah. Blah. So, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. They just released 2 theme songs for the for their proposed fan series, but it's like that's going to be a while in the making, especially when it's just you working on these type of projects. So it's going to be a while before we see that, but it's something to look forward to. I'll definitely link them in the podcast descriptions. You can check them out. Sailor Moon Crisis is also working on their own fan stuff. So there's a whole bunch of fan works that are going on, which is something that, like, as someone that grew up watching Sailor Moon in the 90s, like, that's all we had to fill in the time in between everything else, was all the fan art, the fan fiction, and the fan works that take place in that period of uncertainty. Definitely want to see more musicals. I would not mind seeing a Sailor Moon movie, like a standalone movie similar to the 90s movies that don't necessarily tie into the canon, but kind of like tell their own story. I would like to see, like we've all talked about it, a Sailor V prequel series would be good. A Sailor V movie would be good. A live action revival would be cool. I mean, all the casts are still alive.
Let me see the filming process, please, and thank you.
Right.
Listening.
I mean, it would be. I would be okay with like another PGSM special act where it kind of like catches up with them, like, in the future, after Usagi and Mamoru got married. Maybe another crisis, brings itself around. Maybe they're able to bring back their powers in some way. Again, who knows? But yeah, I can't think of anything else I would like to see in the future. What about you, Z?
I don't know if this like directly correlates, but I feel like there's definitely gonna be more like products, like merchandise and stuff. So
Oh, absolutely.
Dropping some new stuff, like the Jimmy Choo.
Oh my God. Yes, props to all the Sailor Moon collectors that are out there buying Jimmy Choo, because
literally
that is
imaginary money for me. Like,
oh my
dang.
God. Like, if only Monopoly money could be used to buy Jimmy Choo.
For real.
I was like, almost $3,000 for a bag? Oh, I don't have it in me. Do they have a layaway plan?
Yeah.
I'll pay it off in 30 years. The only thing I really wanted from the Jimmy Choo collection was the tennis shoes with the manga prints on them.
Yeah, those are
They're like $700-800.
good.
That's half my rent.
A lot of moolah.
Yeah, it's like, I can't justify. So someone commented that they thought it was wild that the Sailor Starlights died and we never saw them again after the fact.
Yeah.
So I think that's also like can be filed under things that could have been changed or done differently. I think a cool addition would be like after Sailor Moon like reset the universe. Would have been a cool way to see like all of all the glimpses of people on their planets, like Tenyanko, Aluminum Siren, like all of them on their original planets, living normal lives. Princess Cat-Q being reunited with Sailor Starlights and stuff like that. That would have been a good homage to add in there. Some like not necessarily anything too deep, just a montage of them like being with their loved ones and their friends and family on their planet.
Yeah, it's like a different anime, but it could be like an Inuyasha final act moment where you kind of get glimpses and scenes of what the future holds for everybody.
Right. Again, it doesn't. It leaves a lot open to question, but at the same time, it's like it does not diminish the film in any type of capacity. Like, it's still solid. There wasn't anything wrong with it. Just something that could have enhanced the goodness that was already in place.
just elevated a smidge.
Okay. And so we move on to our final question.
Okay.
The $1 million, was it the $64 million question? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
And so this person asked, "Do you think Sailor Cosmos is Usagi?"
Ooh. I feel that Sailor Cosmos is ambiguous as heck. And I personally just going up, down, left, and right on this is why, this is why not. I just think it's cooler to leave her ambiguous. Like, it just
Yeah.
leaves the door open for your imagination and whatnot. But
Right.
I don't think she is.
Right. Yes, I will also say a quiet no
A
to
quiet
Usagi
no.
being to Usagi being Sailor Cosmos. I feel like it's too easy of a answer to say that Sailor Moon / Usagi is Sailor Cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion.
Gotcha.
And I think and for me, I'm very mindful of how I answer this question because I get this question a lot. People are always asking me, Sailor Moon, Sailor Cosmos. Sailor Cosmos and Princess Sailor Moon questions I get all the time.
Yes.
So as a content creator for Sailor Moon, I do get a lot of people asking about the series in general. So I do my best to provide a unbiased answer. I think it would be cool if Sailor Moon was Sailor Cosmos. I think it's really cool to know. Like it would be for me. It's like it would be cool if Sailor Moon got another power up after Eternal.
Yes.
Just
that would be
because
cool.
that's what we're used to.
Yeah.
Do I think Sailor Moon is Cosmos? No, I don't think so.
Mhm.
But I'm also going in the same vein that Cosmos is an ambiguous character.
Yeah.
And that there's certain cues and that happen in Cosmos and previously in the manga and Crystal that kind of contradict that Sailor Moon is Sailor Cosmos theory. So I know that for me, I try to be as very unbiased as possible. I try to only provide what is provided in context in the medium that is being asked about. So, and most of the times I'm going by the manga more than I am the movie itself because the movie itself has taken some liberties and added some things that are kind of like contributing to the shift in Sailor Cosmos's identity, right?
Yes.
So when Sailor Cosmos's trailer first appeared, C Soprano Diva, we love her to death. She was like, "Oh my gosh, when Sailor Cosmos poses, it's in a similar design to the '90s opening intro, like the episode title intro to Sailor Moon. There's a moon in the background. She's in Crystal Tokyo. You see King Endymion. It must be Sailor Moon."
It must be.
And so for me, it's like we also have to be mindful that while Crystal has been for the most part, faithful adaptation, they have taken creative liberties when it comes to the source material.
Oh, yes.
One of those specifically being Sailor Moon defeating Queen Beryl with the sword when originally it was Sailor Venus.
Yep.
So, and I think the same thing happened with Cosmos because there isn't really any, in the manga, there's no clear indication what era it is, where they're at, other than it being the far distant future, Sailor Chaos and Sailor Cosmos. I think the production team kind of like took what assets were already available, Crystal Tokyo, King Endymion, what have you, and kind of put it in there to kind of flesh it out because there wasn't anything really to go off of.
Yeah.
Not saying, and what I'm saying is that changes your opinion or thoughts on this. That's not what I'm saying at all.
No, I got you.
What I'm saying is that it's open to interpretation. That's the whole, like how you choose to interpret it, how you prefer to, what conclusions you prefer to draw from it is completely valid.
100%.
That is yours to claim. I'm not taking that away from you. But for me, it would be remiss of me to press my opinion or my take onto a new fan that is asking what this is about. Sailor Moon is as much as Sailor Moon is a collective fandom experience, it's also a very individual one. So most of the time when people are asking, I'm encouraging them to watch the show and come to their own conclusion. So when it comes to Sailor Cosmos, I suggest you watch the movie, and based on your experience, what do you think? And if that's what you think, that's fine.
Yeah.
I am going to do something that most fans and most content creators probably would not do. Is I'm going to retract the statement that I have made over time.
Oh.
So whenever it comes to Sailor Cosmos, I always refer to a statement that I believe was quoted by Naoko, where she said that Sailor Cosmos' origins are ambiguous even to herself, and that her origins are open to interpretation.
Yeah.
I was talking to my friend Gage about this, and he was like, "Where did she say this? Show me the article." I could not find the source.
Oh.
So as a content creator in Sailor Moon, I am retracting those statements that I had made about Sailor Cosmos and Naoko's comments, because until I find that source, I can't. It's irresponsible for me to go around saying it.
Yeah.
What I did do though was back in September, I asked one of the foremost authorities in Sailor Moon lore, Tuxedo Unmasked,
Oh, excellent.
about Sailor Moon Cosmos. So I asked him, I was like, "Hey, do you have because the one thing I like about Tuxedo Unmasked is that while he does have his personal opinions about Sailor Moon, most, if not all of his articles are based on facts, what is said in the manga, what is said in the show, what have you." So I asked him, I was like, I have been getting a lot of questions about Sailor Cosmos' origins. Do you, based on what you know, what information is available, is Sailor Cosmos Sailor Moon / Usagi, right?
Yes.
When I tell you I got an answer back so fast, he said, "I'm glad you asked that because I wrote an article about this in February 2019. So the article is called 5 Sailor Moon Rumors That Just Won't Die.
Okay.
And the long and the short of it is according to Tuxedo Unmasked and the manga, Sailor Cosmos is Sailor Moon's descendant.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm going to read an excerpt from the article itself. He said, so Tuxedo Unmasked said, "I've seen this go back and forth with people setting the record straight multiple times over. Honestly, some of the confusion isn't entirely unwarranted. Sailor Moon manga has had 2, soon to be 3. So remember, this article was written in 2019.
Okay.
Has had 2, soon to be 3 official translations, and at least 1 complete fan translation. And I think he's referring to Miss Dream.
Okay.
Which can leave us with some pretty different interpretations on the same already vague Japanese dialogue.
Okay.
The question is whether Sailor Cosmos is Sailor Moon from the future, a future Sailor Moon, i.e. Sailor Moon's descendant. The critical line spoken by Sailor Ceres of all people is, "Your Sailor Moon's ultimate form from the future."
Yes.
So the question basically devolves into whether from the future implies that it's a future Sailor Moon or if it's our present Sailor Moon coming back from the future. However, the argument for this being a future descendant of the Moon line falls on its face pretty quickly thanks to the existence of both Queen Serenity and Princess Usagi's small Lady Serenity. There's no evidence anywhere in the story that anyone other than Usagi/Serenity has ever held the title of Sailor Moon, and the existence of Sailor Chibi Moon further implies that this isn't going to happen anytime soon. The descendant theory also changes the entire focus of the scene, nay, the entire climax of the story if it's some descendant down the moon line. You see, the story of Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon is a story of a young ne'er-do-well junior high school girl who gets thrust into the role of a soldier fighting for love and justice and her growth along that journey. Any descendant of Usagi's is equally a descendant of Chibiusa's as well as Queen Serenity. This would mean, more accurately, Sailor Cosmos is the ultimate form of a future Sailor Chibi Moon. And I think most of you would agree that that's not the story Naoki Takeuchi was trying to tell. In case there isn't enough evidence, several pages later, Sailor Cosmos goes on to explain that the me back in this time was also fraught with loneliness, so I decided to constantly be by her side, support her, and help her choose the right path this time around. And we see a picture of Usagi holding Chibi Chibi, so I think we can basically put this one to bed for now. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
So, so to kind of like continue on that, like basically taking the instances from the manga and the movie. One of the reasons why I don't think Sailor Moon is Sailor Cosmos is because Naoki Takeuchi is very clear about the ramifications of time, and that it's impossible. Like it would be detrimental to the time-space continuum for someone from the past to see their future selves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why Sailor Moon never got to meet Neo Queen Serenity.
Yeah.
And the only time she saw Neo Queen Serenity was in a dream.
True.
Right?
Yes.
So at the end of Cosmos, or the end of the Sailor Moon manga, Chibi Chibi reveals herself to Eternal Sailor Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And a few things like occur or don't occur, depending on how you want to view it. One is Sailor Moon doesn't recognize herself. Sailor Moon recognizes Neo Queen Serenity as herself. Right?
Yes.
So, wouldn't she recognize Sailor Cosmos as herself? If she was indeed her future self?
I think someone's letting you cook. You're on to something here. Like that.
Right. And I also think that, you know, if Sailor Cosmos was indeed Sailor Moon,
Mm-hmm.
I think and so there's also like, you know, some question about is Sailor Cosmos after Eternal Sailor Moon or after Neo Queen Serenity.
Mm-hmm.
Neo Queen Serenity is very responsible when it comes to time and space.
Mm-hmm.
Because even as much as she wanted to see Sailor Moon in the Black Moon arc, she knew that it would change history forever. That's why she never did it. So I would think that same level of responsibility would be on Sailor Cosmos. She knew that she would not reveal herself to Eternal Sailor Moon knowing that it would change the course of history forever.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will argue that, you know, Naoki Takeuchi's storytelling is not the best, and that there's some loopholes and continuity issues and stuff like that, and Paul has been very vocal about this, because he's like watching, he's like, why are they super and why are they not eternal when they're laying down and da da da. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily a Naoko thing, it's a production team thing, it's an animator thing, where it's like, because in the manga, Sailor Pluto is not eternal, she's super. The Inner Senshi are not super or eternal, they're in their regular forms. I don't know what that means. You know, it's like I don't know if, because it's the future and it's a peaceful era, they're doing like a Dragon Ball thing where their powers have become dormant and they have to reactivate them again. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that is indicative to the storytelling or the continuity of some of the basic principles that Naoko has laid down.
Yeah.
I just think that based on what's available in the resource material in the source material, I just don't think it just doesn't seem possible for Sailor Cosmos to be Sailor Moon, knowing that it would change the course of history forever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just based off of the information that's given, which is why I don't necessarily go around saying, yes, this is true, yes, it's not true. When people say she is, I'm like, okay, like you are allowed to believe that. You're allowed to believe, like you know, like it's not my place, and it will never be my place to tell you you are right or you are wrong.
Exactly. Like
you are entitled to your opinion.
It's
just like I am.
Prerogative in a way.
Right.
Like,
but yeah, and I think that's kind of like the issue when it comes to Sailor Moon creators, is that the expectation is that we kind of be the tiebreaker or the definitive voice as to what actually is and what actually isn't, and that's not our job.
Yeah.
Our job is to encourage you to watch the series and come to your own conclusion and support 100%. You in whatever preference you decide that you want to be. You know, some people like, and Z knows this better than anybody, because even the musical itself has indicated that, like, it seems to imply that Sailor Cosmos is Chibi Moon.
Yes. Yes.
But that's also based on some of the creative decisions that the production team had to make, because yes, Sailor Cosmos had a long conversation with Sailor Chibi Moon, which led a lot of fans to speculate that Sailor Cosmos is Sailor Chibi Moon because they had a long conversation. But we also take into consideration that in the original manga, Sailor Cosmos has that same conversation with the quartet that were not present in the musicals. So Chibi Moon stood in place of them, much like her and Saturn did when they came back to fight for Sailor Moon in the movement finale, because there was no quartet. That's why Saturn survived.
The only reason.
So
bring it back.
Right. So I think that that's like one of the things that, you know, we have to be very mindful of when it comes to the adaptations of, you know, Sailor Moon, because it's like it all stems from the manga at one point in time, and that the manga is ultimately the original source that you should be probably going off of, and that everything else is an interpretation and adaptation of that story. Because even though, and like the one thing we've learned from Bandai, the Bandai musicals, is that they do their own thing all the time. And none of it's considered canon.
they just go on a whim.
Right, because it's like the Bandai is based off both the anime and the manga. And the Bandai started off as a continuation of the original anime. So, before it started doing its own thing, and it was happening simultaneously as the manga and the anime were being produced. So
they were truly going as they went.
Right, and even Nelke,
and then making their revisions and such.
Right, and even Nelke did its own thing when it came to Dark Kingdom. It wasn't until Infinity that they kind of like aligned themselves more closely with the manga, because even the Black Moon arc took some very creative liberties when it came to their production. And my thing is, like, fans loved it. Yeah. It wasn't like, I can't believe they didn't do the original story. Like nobody thought that. It had some really cool plot twists. But yeah, it was just like, you know, whether you believe Sailor Cosmos is Sailor Moon, not Sailor Moon, Chibi Moon, Chibi Moon, like, I think that, you know, I think even like Naoko knew, like, this is the end. I'm not going to elaborate too much on this character because there's no story after this.
Yeah. Like, the end. Here.
Right. So I think that's a great way to kind of like wrap up the episode for today.
The end.
You know, it's like, well, you know, yeah, like, you know, we're going to leave it ambiguous and open to interpretation as to whether you believe, you know, what you believe Sailor Cosmos' true origins to be. I've had this conversation ad nauseum, and when I talk about with Paul, because Paul, like, truly believes that it's a future version of Sailor Moon. I just, and as an X-Men fan and a Sailor Moon fan, I don't like it to be that simple.
There's got to be layers to this.
There has to be layers. I would like to think that it's more complex than what it really is, and that that some like in my so basically in my interpretation of how Sailor Cosmos came to be is that it's from the choice that Sailor Moon made to continue the Galaxy Cauldron and the production, like the birth of new stars and everything like that, and knowing that Sailor Chaos, like that Chaos will come back, and Chaos came back as a Sailor Soldier, like the culmination of the ultimate evil coming in the form of a Sailor Senshi and facing off one of the most powerful Sailor Senshi, and it's like, what, and we even talked about this on the Eternal Mooncast, where it was like, like one of the theories I came up with on the Eternal Mooncast, and I think that's the fun thing. I think that's one of the reasons why Naoko decided to leave it that way. She's like, I want to see what people are going to say.
I want to hear the conversations.
And it's like, and so when I was talking to Eternal Mooncast, I was like, how do considering like how, like, the time space continuum is not necessarily fluid, or it's not like 100% certain as to the rules and the functions of time and space in the Sailor Moon universe. How do we know that Sailor Cosmos is not Queen Serenity? How do we know? Like, it's like, for me, it's like, there's been speculation that Queen Serenity was a Sailor Senshi at one point in her life, and even in the manga, Nehelenia says we both came from the same place.
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, it's like, how do we know that the final battle between Sailor Cosmos and Sailor Chaos led to what we believe to be the past of Sailor Moon, where Queen Serenity was the ruler of Silver Millennium?
Yeah.
How do we know that Sailor Cosmos didn't come back from her battle with Chaos at Eternal Sailor Moon and Galexia, and went back to her distant future and defeated Sailor Chaos, and had was able to salvage one starseed that turned out to be the Usagi of the past, the Princess Serenity of the past, and that to get away from the endless conflict against Sailor Chaos, she went to another galaxy and started anew with this single starseed and started the Silver Millennium. I leave you with that, my friends.
Yeah, that's some cool stuff to ponder on. Like, really cool, deep stuff to ponder on. Kind of theorize with a little bit more.
And I think that even like Sailor Tortilla and some other people have kind of like, even Paul mentioned, like, oh my gosh, Kotono Mitsuishi did not voice Sailor Cosmos like she did. And my thing was, like, even in the 90s anime at Sailor Stars, she voiced the Light of Hope, but nowhere in the 90s anime did they say it was Sailor Cosmos.
Oh, that's a fair point.
And so a lot of people were expecting Kotono Mitsuishi to do like she did with Light of Hope and voice Cosmos. And who did we get, Z?
We got Keiko Kitagawa.
Yes.
Who
we got.
No, because I like PPSM, and I don't think we touched on that with Homage stuff, but she played Sailor Mars in the live-action Sailor Moon series.
Exactly, and that threw people through a loop. They were like, and my thing is, like, and not only did it throw people a loop, like, not only is Kotono Mitsuishi not voicing Sailor Cosmos, it's Keiko Kitagawa, who is Sailor Mars from PGSM. Not even a voice of Sailor Moon, or actress for Sailor Moon. And it threw people's theories into disarray, because they were like, oh my gosh, they brought in Keiko Kitagawa, who is Sailor Mars, playing Sailor Cosmos, who's supposed to be Sailor Moon. Does that mean she's not Sailor Moon? Does that mean... And yes, and I think that honestly, that's something I would have changed too. I would have brought back Miyu Sawai, her Princess Sailor Moon voice, as Sailor Cosmos.
I don't know.
That would have been great.
That would have been cool as heck, and it would have been cooler if they like didn't announce that and it was like a surprise kind of thing, like they did some Marvel movies where they showing
Yes.
people that were initially there. But
Right.
I think now
I love
gotta
Keiko. I love
Yeah.
Keiko, but I really would have liked, and I guess for me, it's like that also comes from the little movement finale for me, because to see, was it Satomi come back
Satomi.
as Cosmos, I was like, oh my god.
gripping the seats like, oh
I
my
was like,
goodness.
oh my gosh. It was honestly, that is probably the best version of Sailor Cosmos, in my opinion, is Satomi's, portrayal of her, because it was very ambiguous, it wasn't definitive, but she shined in the few moments that she was in the musical.
She did. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So-
Like they had, I don't want to say they had one shot, but this is like the first time this character is being portrayed on the stage, being seen by people, and they ate with that shot. They took it.
They devoured,
They
left
left
no
no
crumbs.
crumbs.
It was a smorgasbord, because not only did Satomi do a great Cosmos, we got to see a Sailor Cosmos attack
Right.
ever in the Sailor Moon fandom.
Mm-hmm.
Because when she did that, I lost it.
Losing.
I was like,
Is screeching and screaming.
oh my gosh, I swear, it was so brief. Like, Chaos was talking to her, and the little flashback montage, and she finished off with that attack, and the way and I would have loved for Satomi to voice Sailor Cosmos, because her voice of Sailor Cosmos was really good too.
Really good.
But yes, if you have not watched Sailor Cosmos, I hope we didn't spoil too much for you.
Hopefully we did.
But this is also an opportunity for you to go back and watch with new eyes and experience it from a different perspective, kind of like, listen to the sound design, rewatch some of the scenes and kind of like see if what we discussed kind of gives you a different take on the movie in general, or your thoughts on some of the characters and what have you. And we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
That felt good.
That felt so good. That was so much fun. That was so much fun. Oh my gosh. I love talking about this.
I really needed this Z, because it was just like, I really needed it, and it was just like, this is like, it just pumps me up, and it's like getting me back into the swing of things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, like, I miss my aunt, and yes, I feel sad that she's gone, but it's like, she would want me to do the things that I love, and it's just like doing this again, it's like, oh my gosh, like I could feel my energy coming back and creativity flowing in and stuff like that. So but I felt so bad that our last episode got deleted.
Things happen.
They do. They really do. And I was like, because I literally told you, I was like, I'm going to edit our episode. I'm going to get it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like laying in bed. I'm like, yeah, I had put it on my calendar. Like I had scheduled the time of the day to get it all taken care of. And I like jolted awake. And I was like, holy crap. I had to download the episode. And I was like, oh my gosh. And you only have a certain amount of time to get it.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I downloaded on a computer. Couldn't find it anywhere on a computer.
Mm.
And when I went into the system, gone.
Just fully dissipated.
I was like, oh no! What am I going to do?